Wonderful. We are live on the Pan-African Daily. Please, if you're joining this conversation, make sure you are sharing and inviting one another because we're about to take.
You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want. Unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherlands calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa.
Okay. Good evening, dear family, dear Pan-African Daily TV followers, families watching from abroad and in the diaspora. I want to thank you and welcome you to this special edition where we really want to get into lectures on Congo, right? I'm sorry for yesterday. As you can see, my face is just like bumping up. I have a very serious cold. So please don't get offended if yeah. But luckily it's virtual, so nobody's gonna be contaminated here anyway. Yeah. Today we want to diagnose Congo. There's been a lot. We know about the historical fact, and but actually nobody is seeming to have to bring a solution on the table. From all the authors, the writers, the Congo that we knew in those times of Leopold is still the Congo that is going on now. So we will not keep saying during the times of Leopold, this is what happening, because the Congo that was is still. And we don't seem the leaders on the continent or the continent itself don't seem to have a solution for Congo. It is either they're part of the problem and could not definitely be part of the challenge, the solution. So we are really looking and digging, like everyone is saying, if Congo matters, if Congo doesn't matter, Africa cannot matter. And we understand the background. I'm very happy our guest is already in studio, just for you to know that this is not my show. I'm just here hosting and interviewing our guests and multi-talented guests from all over the continent and in the diaspora, young people, old, elderly, elders, women, men, boys, girls. I mean, that's what Pan-African Daily is all about, collecting and putting our voices together. So our guest is in the studio just trying to, put his stuff together, and I'll bring him live on the show. So like I said, we want to diagnose Congo. That's what we want to talk about today. That's the main big lecture of today. But of course, we do know that we'll be having some announcements to make, like the rifle for the last celebration of Dessalines, Emperor Dessalines, the biggest hero in the African liberation movement and the unity of Africa, the Haitian king and God. Okay, and yes, so I'll be sharing some information also on that. What I got from Professor Baina, and it's very important for us to understand, to know that we should continue to support ourselves. And we're looking forward for all of you to buy your rifle ticket. I mean, Cheryl already bought. Cheryl just told me it was so easy to purchase. And I also will be sharing a link on it. Okay. And as I want to thank you, I want to thank all of you that are already queuing up in the stream here. And yes, and to tell you, your sister Tata, I'm suffering from a cold, so please pray for me. I've been praying, we've been praying for everybody, but you need to really pray for me now. It's so cold and chilly out here. You can see me in a hoodie, and I've been drinking water, minding my business, but this time it's like I need the community. Community, I need you. Okay, I need you to pour libations on me here. Yes. All right. So wherever you're watching from, please make sure you always indicate to us where you're watching from. That's just the key function here. Like I said, Currently, we don't really know who is following us where because, yeah. But we are on it. I see all of you here and I see the people joining in the back. And this is massive. I know everybody wants to hear about Congo. Everybody wants to hear about the main solution. Yes, of course. We need also to talk about Rwanda, as you said. That's right. We just need speakers. All I need is to get a lecturer, professor, expert, opinionist, people who actually we can lay the facts on the table and say, this is what we're talking about. We're not just rambling. We're not just picking Wikipedia stories from the Eurocentric idea of who we are. No, we're calling Africans that have done research, that are professors, that are historians, that are anthropologists, right? And experts in the topic. That's why we are known as the Kemet University. Hmm? Because of all. If it's somebody that is just an opinion, I would also say, right, this is just an opinion. We're gathering this opinion. No, but these ones are expert. So if you know an expert that knows the knowledge of your country, the situation, and could provide a space or a conversation where all of us can then bring our voices and say, now we are informed. Remember, we never got any history. We never got our story. I'm sorry. We only got history, but we didn't get our story. So, but right now we're trying to get our story from ourselves. And Congo is not enough. Cameroon is not enough. Diaspora, we have how many countries? As you see, we posted it, more than 55 in the world, not only on the continent, that are hosting Black people. So you can imagine that we need information about all these backgrounds, and we need historians here and experts from your country, whether you're in the diaspora. We need experts in those communities to be able to share with us information, educate and empower us on how the situation is on the ground with your people right there. So I'm going to bring our guests right in now. And while I do so, I'm just posting the link for you to get the rifle from, yes, I'm sharing the link for you to get the rifle for the fundraising of Haiti, and that's on Friday. And I know when we get already into conversation, we just going to mix fast because like when we are on, when we are on, I don't want to mess up with information because it dislocates our understanding. This is a classroom. And once we're in the classroom, when the teacher starts speaking, I pull back. We all pull back and listen and learn. And if there's something to contribute, we can contribute. Okay. So, like I said, go and purchase your rifle. I'll be bringing in our guest. I think he should be ready by now. Wow. Mr. MAURICE CARNEY is right, sitting here. He's going to introduce himself to you, like I said, in a whole classroom or in community or in a village. Nobody would introduce somebody. He would tell us, but I'm so happy that when we were looking for experts, we asked Friends of Congo. He's going to tell you who Friends of Congo are. We reach out to the continent, try to reach out to individuals. We know a lot of books have been written about Congo, but the only one time that a colleague of us here, who's also been a guest, tried to reach out to our brother, Mr. Carney, sitting here and said, he is the right person that could give us valuable, incredible information. So I don't know if he's Congolese born or he did a study on it. So he's going to tell us. Good evening and welcome to Pan-African Daily, brother.
Thank you, Dr. Tata. As you said, I'm with Friends of the Congo. My name is MAURICE CARNEY. It's a pleasure to join you and your audience, to be in conversation and dialogue and exchange with you. Let me share a little bit about us. Friends of the Congo is a Pan-African solidarity institution. We're based in the United States. We come in the tradition of the Friends of Abyssinia, as your audience is probably aware. In the mid-1930s, figures like C.L.R. James and Amy Ashwood Garvey established the Friends of Abyssinia to come to the side of the Ethiopians as they were being attacked by the Italians in Pan-African solidarity in an anti-colonial formation. So it's that tradition that Friends of the Congo was formed in that in the early 1990s, or the mid-1990s rather, Congo came under assault. Type of assault that the United Nations says was the deadliest, produced the deadliest conflict in the world since World War II, where in the heart of the motherland, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, we lost 6 million precious souls, half of them children under the age of 5. So it is out of that spirit that Friends of the Congo came on the scene to do pursue two overarching aims. One was to raise global consciousness about what was transpiring in the heart of the African continent. Second was to provide support to local institutions that were in pursuit of peace, pursuit of justice, and in pursuit of human dignity. So it is in that spirit, that Pan-African spirit, the Pan-African solidarity, that Friends of the Congo came about to be with figures from throughout the African world, from the Caribbean. Me, myself, I was born in Jamaica, from the United States, different parts of Africa, and of course, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And Friends of the Congo, the brainchild, the spirit behind Friends of the Congo came from one Dr. Alafuele Mbui Kalala, one of the greatest sons that the Congo has produced since Lumumba. And he was the spirit behind the formation of Friends of the Congo. Now, when we deal with the Democratic Republic of the Congo, we have to go way back. We're not just talking about what has unfolded in the past quarter century or so. We're talking about a space in the heart of the African continent. We can go back as far as 25,000 years. The Congo is home to the oldest mathematical artifact in the world. Early signs of advanced civilization, where you have scientists have discovered the Shango bone. Shango bone functioned both as a binary counting system. For those of you computer experts out there, you should know what that means. And also a lunar calendar. So in the heart of the motherland, we find in the Congo the oldest mathematical artifact on the planet. But for our contemporary condition, as not just Congolese, but as Africans overall, we have to center the Congo. In fact, it's not even a question of our having to center the Congo, but the 500-year tragedy that has unfolded among Africans. Congo has been at the center at key pivotal times. We know that in the mid-1400s, coming out of Europe, where the Catholic Church and the popes issued these papal bulls and presented to the world the notion, the idea of the doctrine of discovery. That is to say, whatever European explorers go out and quote unquote discover, lands, riches, you name it, if it's not in the ownership in the hands of Christians, then they could appropriate it for their benefit and their interests. And it was this doctrine of discovery that drove the explorers to the Americas to acquire land. And in the acquisition of the land, they needed that land to produce for the primitive accumulation phase of their capitalist system. And it's at that point where we see the European powers going to the African continent and trafficking, extracting human beings. And in this period, the Congo region, the heart of the African continent, was pivotal. The UNESCO and Emory University slave database. Emory University has a program. They call it. You can take a look at it. It's called Slave. It's visit it at Slave Voyages, slavevoyages.org. Emory universities in the United States in Atlanta. They probably the leading center on data as it relates to the trafficking of Africans from the continent. And they've produced maps, data, you name it. And the website again is slavevoyages.org, and you can get all of that information. But what they say in there is almost half, Dr. Tata, almost half of the Africans who were trafficked to the Americas by Europeans came out of the Congo region, right? We're talking about modern day Democratic Republic of Congo, Republic of Congo, parts of Angola, Gabon. We're talking about Equatorial Guinea, right all along in the center. Conventional wisdom is that most of us came from West Africa, but almost half, 4 out of 10, according to the database, came out of the Congo region. So at the beginning of the most tragic epoch of our existence as African peoples, we see Congo being front and center, right? Now, this extraction period lasted hundreds of years, from the 1400s, right, where we're talking about extracting human beings, Africans, not just for their labor, but also for their intellect as well. For hundreds of years, we saw the advance, this labor, this intellect that came out of the African continent was central to the development of capitalism. There's an excellent book that people can consult by Sven Becken called The Empire of Cotton, or the Cotton Empire, by Sven Becker, a Harvard University professor. Or even some of your audience may already be familiar with Eric Williams' Capitalism and Slavery, where they document the centrality of African labor and intellect to the advancement of capitalism, right? And so as we move ahead, hundreds of years, as we come into the industrialization of Europe, we see that Europe then again had need for resources. From 1400s to 1800s, the resources that Europe needed to develop Europe and advance capitalism was the human resources taken out of the African continent. Now, in the mid-1800s, the resources that Europe needs are natural resources, right? And so they saw Africa, the continent, as the great magnificent pie, right? That's how they described it. So some 14 European nations or so, including the United States and others, established or formed what they called the Berlin Conference. It was also referred to as the Congo Conference in 1884, 1885 in Berlin, presided over by Otto von Bismarck. And an excellent book to consult around this is called The Scramble for Africa by Thomas Pakenham. He lays that out really well. It's a racist presentation, but the information and the data is instructive and informative nonetheless. You just have to wade through the racism of the era to get to it. But at the Berlin Conference in 1884, 1885, what the leaders did there, Otto von Bismarck and the European nations and the United States, was to establish their spheres of influence on the African continent, right? And that's why we were talking about 54 countries. You know, those countries in Africa, they weren't formed by Africans. Those borders weren't created by Africans in the interest of Africans. They were created by Europeans, right? That's important to understand, that the Africa we see today is an Africa that was created by Europeans in Europe, 1884, 1885. And in that conference, the biggest prize was given to King Leopold II of Belgium. And that was the Congo, which they euphemistically, I guess we can say, called the Congo Free State. And King Leopold II owned the Congo outright, lock, stock, and barrel. It was his own personal property, his private property, right? A geographic space that was 80 times larger than Belgium itself, where he was the king. And during a 23-year period from 1884 to 1908, incidentally, the first country in the world to recognize the ownership of the Congo under King Leopold II was the United States. All right? Mind you, some six decades plus earlier, or actually a good 8 decades earlier, the Haitians had won their revolution, the sole nation on the planet at the time to overthrow the system of slavery. And it took, in the early 1800s, it took the United States 6 decades to recognize Haiti as a state. And to this very day, the United States has treated Haiti as for all intents and purposes, a colonial outpost. So we have the United States immediately recognizing the ownership of the Congo by King Leopold II of Belgium. He ruled it for a 23-year period. And in that 23-year period, from 1884 to 1885 to 1908, we see that the Congolese population was decimated by half, right? An estimated 10 million Congolese perished as the king extracted rubber and ivory from the Congo in order to feed modern industry, Western industry. At the time, in the late 1800s, we had the development and establishment, discovery of the pneumatic tire by Dunlap, and that played a role in that played a role in increasing the need for rubber coming out of the Congo. And the king's rule was so atrocious, was so devastating that it triggered an international outcry, right? Imagine the population being decimated by half, an estimated 10 million people perishing, all to feed the industries of the West. An excellent book to consult to get a sense of what was taking place during this period is Adam Hochschild's King Leopold's Ghost. It's a fine book to consult that covers that period. Now, there's some particular characteristics, Pan-African, anti-colonial phenomena that came out of the devastated rule by King Leopold II. We see, for example, African Americans playing a key role. We have one figure, his name is William Shepherd. He was a Presbyterian missionary. He and a remarkable sister by the name of Lucy Gant, they had gone to the Congo. They were working in the Congo, and they were observing what was unfolding. You see, the colonial administrators would be given bullets, or they would give their understudy bullets, a certain number of bullets, to go out and control and assure that the quota of rubber was delivered. Now, when they come back, the bullets would be counted, and the bullets that were used from the cartridge that was given to them, for each bullet that was used on the native Congolese, they had to produce a body part, right? So a hand will be chopped off. So if you use the bullet, killed somebody because they weren't delivering their quota of rubber, you wanted to enforce the king's rule. In order to prove that that bullet was used on a Congolese, what they had to do was chop off the hand and bring it back to the colonial administrator. So that was the type of brutality. It was forced labor, slavery, atrocities, right? Now, these were all being documented by Mr. William Shepherd, and he would get that out to the world. You had figures that picked up on these atrocities, like Mark Twain, for example. And Mark Twain, the great American writer and satirist, wrote a book called King Leopold's Soliloquy, where he's just satire on the king's reign over the Congo. So here we find African Americans, Black folks, being in solidarity with the Congolese, producing content that would pique the consciousness of the world at the time. It wasn't just William Shepard and Lucy Gant. We also had a remarkable figure by the name of George Washington Williams. And George Washington Williams, some African Americans call him the first African American historian of note. But he also fought in the Civil War, where he fought for the freedom of Black folks, fought to extricate himself and other Black folks out of the system of enslavement. And after the Civil War, George Washington Williams was elected official in Ohio. He attended Howard University at one point. And what he heard about was unfolding in the Congo, he wanted to go and see. And he wrote King Leopold II a letter indicating as much, about what was unfolding in the Congo. So when he went and he saw what was taking place in the Congo, he came back and he reported what was unfolding in the Congo, for all intents and purposes, were crimes against humanity that was taking place there. A remarkable figure, George Washington Williams, the great African-American historian of note, John Hope Franklin, wrote a book on George Washington Williams, for those of you who'd like to learn more about this incredible heroic figure. It's called The Biography of George Washington Williams. So you had figures like William Shepard, George Washington Williams, and towering figures like Booker T. Washington. For those of you who are familiar with Booker T. Washington, his biography, Up From Slavery. Booker T. Washington wrote an essay called Savagery in the Congo. He was a part of the Congo Reform Commission that was formed coming out of Europe. That was a main advocacy institution at the time, fighting to basically wrestle the Congo away from King Leopold II. There's a book out there called Red Rubber that deals with that and speaks about the Congo Reform Association, Congo Reform Association. So Booker T. Washington was also engaged in fighting for the Congolese in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And this global movement around the Congo was successful to the extent that they were able to wrestle the Congo, so-called Congo Free State, away from King Leopold II of Belgium. And now this is really key, Dr. Tata, in that the success was to wrestle the personal property away from King Leopold II. In fact, he got paid for it. He was compensated for it. But it was not handed over to the Congolese people, right? It is at this point in 1908 that Congo transitioned, and the people, from being under the ownership of a king to becoming a colonial state, a colony of Belgium, right? And Belgium ruled Congo from 1908 to 1960. Now, this is a really critical point, the fact that it was handed over to Belgium, because it lays out the central challenge of the Congo, right? And really, by extension, challenge of Africa and Africans globally, right?
Yes.
The pursuit to control and determine our affairs, right? Whether you're in Congo or in Southeast DC, the challenge of Africans globally is that we do not control and determine our affairs, right? So this, in a lot of respects, right, the Congo is emblematic of not only the challenge that we face as a people, but the extremes that we see in Africa and among African people. What I mean by that, when you're talking about tragedy, right, you're hard pressed to find a space on the planet, certainly in the African world, that is more tragic than the Congo, right? Almost half of the African, and this is within our 500-year journey, what our brilliant sister author Marimba Ani calls the Maafa, right? We see that from the beginning of that 500-year journey, almost half of the Africans that were extracted came out of the Congo region. From 1885 to 1908, an estimated 10 million Congolese perished, right? Even right up to today, from 1996 to the present, an estimated 6 million Congolese perished, right? So when it comes to the tragedy, there is no place on the planet, certainly among Africans, that is more tragic and where more tragedy has unfolded than in the heart of the motherland, than in the Congo, right? That's why I say Congo has been central to our tragic history. By the same token, and I'll get to this a little bit later, when we talk about the potential that exists for our people, you'd be hard pressed to find a space on the planet that's richer than the Democratic Republic of the Congo as it relates to natural resources. We're talking about natural resources. We're talking about energy. We're talking about energy security. We're talking about food security. There is no place on the African continent that packs the potential that Congo packs. And I'll get into that a little more. I don't know if you wanted to intervene or ask any questions.
No, it's okay. Just go ahead. Yes.
So the central quest for Congolese, for Africans, for the global African family, is for us to control and determine our own affairs. Now, in the introduction, you talked about, well, it's a situation where people have made prescriptions for Congo and for Africa. We just don't have the solutions, and things seem to be the same. Well, things remain the same because the blueprint has not fundamentally changed.
Yes.
The blueprint has not fundamentally changed. And what is that blueprint? The blueprint is an extractive blueprint. Those 54 nations that you talk about, those nations were designed by Europeans for extraction. That's what they're designed for, extraction. That's why the African continent you'd be hard pressed to find what it produces, because it's being plundered, it's being pilfered. Its wealth, whether human or natural, is being extracted for the purpose of the West and others, right? So until we change the blueprint, and in changing and we've had major figures, the best and brightest that we've produced in the African world have laid out how it is that we need to change that blueprint. And this brings us brings us to the end of the colonial period. We talked about Congo being colonized by Belgium from 1908 to 1960. During this period, that extractive process continued. We've gone through the extraction of human beings coming out of the Congo region, Africans. We've gone through the extraction of rubber and ivory. Probably most notably, prominently, during the colonial rule of Belgium over the Congo, is the extraction of the mineral uranium, right? And uranium was a key mineral was extracted out of the Congo by the Belgians for the purposes of the United States. Recently, in the United States, some of you may have seen the movie called The Manhattan Project. And the Manhattan Project, as many of you know, was a project to develop the atomic weapons that ultimately were dropped on Japan at the end of World War II. Well, the atomic weapons could not have been developed without Congo's uranium. Congo's uranium was Congo provided the largest amount of uranium for the atomic weapons and the highest quality. Some say some came out of Canada as well. It's an author, Susan Williams, who wrote a book around that, speaking of spies in the Congo. So at each period, we see that Congo being central to the advancement of technology, but outside of Congo itself by the West. Now, I stated that at the end of the colonial period, we're talking about the late 50s, 1960, we saw figures gathering that independence heroes, right? Gathering that had the answers for our liberation as a people, had the answers for extricating themselves out of colonialism and laying down a path forward for the total liberation, not just of the individual countries, but of the African continent, and really by extension would be the African world. And what gave this liberation movement life and a framing were the Pan-African Congresses, right? Starting from 1900 in London with Henry Sylvester Williams, amazing Trinidadian visionary, right up through with the initial Pan-African Conference, the first Pan-African Conference, and then with W.E.B. Du Bois and his Pan-African Congresses, culminating in the 1945 Manchester Conference, right, Congress, where you had, again, figures like Amy Ashford Garvey, W.E.B. Du Bois, front and center, and probably most importantly, Kwame Nkrumah, right? You had figures like Tom Mboya out of Kenya. You had figures like Ras McConnell out of Guyana, figures like George Padmore out of Trinidad. These figures were part of the 45 Congress. And that was the large major Congress before we start to see the independence of African states. And when Ghana got its independence in March of 1957, March 6, 1957, we see that Nkrumah, who had studied in the United States at Lincoln University, who was a huge admirer of one of the greatest Pan-Africanists that our people have given to the world, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, out of Jamaica, who incidentally, when he went to the United States, he was inspired by a gentleman I spoke about earlier, Booker T. Washington of Tuskegee Institute. He came to the United States seeking Booker T. Washington. So Nkrumah was inspired by Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And you just have to look at the Ghana today, from its flag to just all the symbols that they took out of Marcus Garvey's Universal Negro Improvement Association. So Nkrumah, being steeped in the Pan-African tradition, being a key organizer of the 1945 Manchester Congress, the moment he was elected, he took power in Ghana, he and the Ghanaians overthrew the colonial rule. And the moment that he did that, what he did was he brought Pan-Africanism home to the continent, right? At the All-African People's Conference in Accra in 1958. And he brought Ras McConnell with him. He brought George Padmore with him. George Padmore was the key organizer, administrator of the All-African People's Conference of 1958. That rallied African peoples from around the world. It was the first time in almost 6 decades of Pan-African conferences, from Henry Sylvester Williams right up to, in 1900, right up to the All-African People's Conference in Accra, with its blazoning insignia, hands off Africa. That was a declaration of the conference. The first time that Pan-African conference was held on the African continent. And you had major figures from, even from Tanzania, from South Africa, from Kenya, from the Congo, from the United States, from all over that they gathered to discuss the future, not of Ghana, but of Ghana and all of Africa. There's Nkrumah, famously stated that, the liberation of Ghana without liberation of Africa is meaningless. So he set out on the path to rally Africans to make sure every square inch of the African continent will be free and liberated. And in fact, it was at that conference that the Africans decided, right, that they would be liberated by any means necessary. Because remember, the liberation of Ghana, for all intents and purposes, was a nonviolent undertaking. There was a nonviolent movement. It wasn't like what we witnessed in Algeria, against the French. And Nkrumah was an admirer of Gandhi himself. So at the 58 conference in Accra, the big debate that was put on the table, most notably by our shining prince from Martinique, who was Dr. Frantz Fanon. He's a medical doctor. He was steep in the fight for liberation of Algeria against the French. And that was a violent undertaking, all right? There's a violent independence movement on the part of the Algerians. There's a film that documents it well. I'll get the title, just escape my mind for it, but a very famous film that documents it well. But what Frantz Fanon did, and he was a major speaker, a main speaker at the conference, and it was very well received, probably more than others, was for him to put the question of violence on the table as a means for liberation. So one of the declarations coming out of the conference was that liberation by any means necessary. Of course, Malcolm X picked up that dictum and popularized it. You see Malcolm talking when he talked about the liberation of the 22 million Afro-Americans. He'd almost always add by any means necessary. So that came out of the Accra conference of 1958. So you had Fanon there. You had Lumumba, Patrice Lumumba, the young Patrice Lumumba, who was there as well. He was 33 years old at the time, and he participated in the conference and struck up a remarkable relationship with Kwame Nkrumah himself. Kwame Nkrumah served as a father figure, a mentor to Lumumba, and Nkrumah, along with Sekou Touré of Guinea. And some of you may remember the story of Sekou Touré of Guinea. A worthy story in that when de Gaulle of France sought to maintain French influence throughout the French colonies, they organized referenda in the French colonies, and you had a choice to either be with the French or against, be a part of the French Union, which would ultimately become the notorious France Afrique, where the French maintain the control of their colonies, even though colonization period had ended. So what the Guineans did, they had organized and rallied people to the Guinean people to say no to de Gaulle. No, we do not want to be a part of, remain any longer a part of the French Union. They'd rather live in poverty and dignity than live under French rule in a state of dependence. And Sekou Touré, Ahmed Sekou Touré, said as much. And he brought major figures that would cut their teeth in organizing the Guinean masses. A figure that's definitely worthy of note is our sister from the Central African Republic by the name of Andre Blouin. Andre Blouin is an amazing Pan-Africanist, a woman Pan-Africanist. All the women out there who are Pan-Africanists should know Andre Blouin. If you don't know Andre Blouin, go look her up. She wrote a book called Africa, My Country, really an ode, in a sense, to Patrice Lumumba, who wrote his book, Congo, My Country. So Andre Blouin wrote her companion, Africa, My Country. And so she was a part of it. And I mentioned her because she's significant. What came out of the 58 Pan-African Conference, the first one to be held on the African continent, they agreed to hold annual conferences, Pan-African conferences of that nature. Lumumba from the Congo participated. And what you'll notice if you look at Lumumba and his trajectory as a political figure, there is a pre-1958 Lumumba and there's a post-1958 Lumumba. In October of 1958, he had formed what he called his political movement. And he's one of the co-founders of his political movement, the Congolese National Movement, Mouvement National Congolais, MNC in French. And by December 1958, you find him at the Pan-African Conference in Accra. And what that conference did was, with Lumumba being exposed to the likes of Fanon, he spent a lot of time with Fanon in Accra. They both spoke French, so they were able to communicate with each other. Being exposed to towering figures such as Nkrumah, it radicalized Lumumba, right? Within less than 30 days of the conference, he going back to the Congo, he was organizing thousands of people in the streets of Kinshasa. His language changed. If you read Congo, My Country, you find a conciliatory language, almost an integrationist approach, collaborating with the Belgians. But post 58, you hear Lumumba talking about self-determination, Africans control, Congolese controlling the resources of the Congo for the benefit of Congolese and for the benefit of Africans. So the 58 All-African People's Congress served as a radicalizing element for Lumumba. And what Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Touré, and others, other leaders, they're determined to do, not just with Lumumba, but particularly with Lumumba in the Congo, were to dispatch emissaries to go support the liberation movement in the Congo. So it wasn't just rhetoric for Nkrumah when he was talking about, Ghana not being free until all of Africa is free. It wasn't just rhetoric, for Touré. So they dispatched figures like Andre Blouin, who went to the Congo to work with Lumumba. She actually became his chief of protocol. They called up on our amazing brother from the Cameroon, who's also a medical doctor, Félix Moumé, who was struck down by the French. But he was called upon to support Lumumba as well. So what I'm laying out for you, Dr. Tata, is not just a reciting of history. I'm sharing with you how these leaders were unified, right? So one ingredient for the liberation that we're seeing is unity, right? How they were unified, how they supported each other, and even Nkrumah took it further. He wanted to establish what he called the United States of Africa. Much like you have the United States of America, Nkrumah sought to establish the United States of Africa. Nkrumah and Touré of Guinea, and Modibo Keita of Mali, the early formation. And while he had established a special agreement with Lumumba that the capital of the United States of Africa would be Leopoldville, they call it at the time. Today it would be Kinshasa, right? Where Congo would serve as the capital of the Nkrumah's Pan-African project of the United States of Africa. So, and in fact, he lays this out in one of the, probably the only book that he has written about a particular country, in The Challenge of the Congo. Nkrumah wrote, he was a prolific writer, wrote about 14 books or so. And one of those, 1967, wrote The Challenge of the Congo, where he centers the Congo in his writing as being a key element of African liberation, of Pan-African unity, of his Pan-African project of the United States of Africa, right? And he wasn't the only one to see that. Fanon in African World Revolution says that the fate, Dr. Tata, the fate of all of us is at stake in the Congo, right? He recognized the centrality of the Congo. So Lumumba had gone back to the Congo with support from his Pan-African comrades, and ultimately wound up his party, MNC, Congolese National Movement, won the elections in May of 1960. And of particular note about not only Lumumba himself and his party, but the Congolese people, right? They were offered choices. They were offered choices of ethnic solidarity, right? Like Kasavubu with his ethnic group, or Chombe out of this regional formation. But the platform that Lumumba ran on and won and was well received by the Congolese people was a non-ethnic, non-regional, unified Congo as a center of Pan-Africanism, right? The Congolese people embraced this vision of Lumumba's party. And his party won the plurality of the votes. And he was then made prime minister of the independent Congo. And however, the Belgians did not want to let go of the Congo so easily, right? 5 years or so earlier, the Belgians had developed a plan. It's called the Van Bilsen Plan, where there was a 30-year plan that they laid out for Congo's independence to occur gradually, maybe right around in the mid-1980s or so, right? That's what the Belgians had in mind. But Lumumba, Kasavubu, and others forced their hands, right? They had to give up their colonial prize. Now, Lumumba's party won the elections, or the plurality of the elections. He became prime minister. It was a compromise that made Kasavubu president. And at the inauguration on June 30th, 1960, the prime minister, Lumumba, was not scheduled to speak. The king of Belgium, King Baudouin, the president, Kasavubu. So what Lumumba did was he bogarted the mic, right? After Kasavubu had given a conciliatory speech, and after King Baudouin had given a patronizing speech, where he said that his great-grand or his grand King Leopold had brought civilization to the Congo. Now, based on what I shared with you earlier, we know he didn't bring civilization, right? Right? These Europeans, they often talk about the 3 C's of colonization. They claim they bring the 3 C's. They claim they bring civilization. They claim they bring Christianity, and they claim they bring commerce, right? So those are the 3 C's of colonization. And King Baudouin was saying, we brought civilization. So we hope you will be good custodians of what our dignified Belgian ancestors have left for you. And that was the essence of his speech. He told him not to move too quickly. If you need help, we're here to help you. Don't dismantle what we have built up for you. So, of course, that outraged Lumumba. And he took the mic and he reminded the king, that we suffered under your lashes. We suffered under your segregation. We suffered under your forced labor. We couldn't get access to our own resources under your rule. And now that we, the sons and daughters of the Congo, have taken control, political control, we're going to make sure this tremendous wealth that's in our soil, on our feet, benefit our people first and foremost, Congolese. And not only Congolese, but benefit Africans. That was his declaration, right? And of course, the Western powers, this didn't sit well with them, that this bold upstart. Some people say that sealed his fate. And others say his fate was sealed long before that. But within a matter of weeks, the destabilization had begun. The Belgians had worked with Chambé of the Katanga province, the industrial mining area of the Congo, the richest part of the country, to secede, right? You had uprisings in the military. The soldiers didn't want to be ruled by, led anymore by officers, white officers. They wanted their own Congolese officers. So within a matter of weeks, the country was destabilized. And front and center of the destabilizing of the Congo under the prime ministership of Patrice Emery Lumumba was the United States of America, led by its intelligence arm, the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. So from several sources, we get an insight into what the United States was really up to as it relates to Patrice Lumumba. From declassified documents released by the State Department, we learned that the action, the covert action in the Congo at that time on the part of the United States was the largest in the world in terms of financing. The Congo was really the first independent African country that the United States intervened in the way it did. And it was the largest covert action in the world. In his book, Chief of Station Congo, Larry Devlin, who was the chief of station of the CIA, he laid out how he dismantled the nascent democratic, the embryonic democratic regime or nation or government of Patrice Lumumba by corrupting Lumumba's enemies, by supporting Lumumba's foes, by orchestrating or transitioning what would normally be congenial debates within a parliamentary structure and pushing it into the streets, whereby differences were settled through violence as opposed to rhetoric, reasoning, persuasion, right? He lays this all out in the book, how he went about corrupting the Congolese elite, ultimately overthrowing, orchestrating the overthrow of Patrice Lumumba. And he said of note, one thing you'll notice about the Congo, both its friends and its enemies are in agreement on one thing, and that is Congo is central to the future of the African continent. Right? I shared with you how Nkrumah laid that out, and Fanon. Well, here it is. The Central Intelligence Agency officer, Larry Devlin, in his own book, says that we had to overthrow Lumumba, because if we didn't overthrow Lumumba, not only would we have lost the Congo, but would have risked losing all of Africa. So he ties the fate of all of Africa to the Congo.
Yes.
Right? Those are echoes of Fanon, right? Those are the words coming out of Nkrumah's challenge of the Congo. So, in fact, Chairman Mao took it to a whole nother level. He said, he who controls the Congo controls the world, right? So we see here again agreement around the centrality of the Congo, and so Lumumba, Larry Devlin's um, Devlin's statements in his book about the corrupting of Congolese elite was corroborated by the declassified documents that were released, I think 2016, 17, something like that, where every leader that came after Lumumba, the CIA had a say in that leader ascending to power in the Congo, right? So Lumumba was overthrown by the Central Intelligence Agency, instrumentalizing Congolese elites, and ultimately assassinated on January 17, 1961. He was assassinated with his comrades, Joseph Okito and Maurice Mpolo. And an excellent film that captures that really well is Raoul Peck, a Haitian filmmaker, film entitled Lumumba. Highly recommend that people watch that. Of course, a number of books, so many books have come out. Not Larry Devlin, but Ludo DeWitt has an excellent book called The Assassination of Lumumba. It's a book he wrote coming out of his dissertation. It was so earth-shattering that the Belgian Parliament had to establish a parliamentary commission on the book, not only to relook the assassination of Lumumba, but also to address the colonial rule of Belgium in the Congo. So that assassination was arguably the most important assassination of the 20th century, Lumumba's assassination, because it wasn't just about Lumumba, it wasn't just about Congo, but it was about all of Africa, right? Because remember, I shared with you, Leopoldville was going to be serving as the capital of the United States of Africa. And to have that capital, have that the heart of that vision be yanked out by the United States in particular. It wasn't just the United States, but they were the main actor. You had the United States, you had Belgium, you had other European powers, England and France. You had the United Nations. They were all arrayed against this Pan-African freedom fighter in Patrice Lumumba. And not only was Lumumba overthrown, assassinated, but the infrastructure, the democratic infrastructure, the visionaries, they became under assault, because what the United States did was it installed a dictatorship over the Congolese people in Joseph Desiree Mobutu, right? A dictatorship that was installed by the United States and maintained by the United States for over 3 decades, right? 37 years, or 32 years to be exact, right? Where if Congolese rose up and try and rid themselves of the dictatorship, the U.S. would send in bombers, would back Mobutu and keep him, maintain him in power. So these 3 decades under Mobutu ran the country into the ground. He stole billions of dollars out of Congo's wealth and stashed it in Swiss bank accounts and accounts in Europe and villas, much like many of the neocolonial leaders that we see that came to the African, ascended to power in Africa following the post-independence period. You know, some of them like the head there of Cameroon, Paul Biya, not only put his wealth in Europe, he's in Europe. He spends more time in Europe than he does in the Cameroon. So it ushered in this neocolonial era, which Nkrumah wrote about in his book Neocolonialism. He coined the term neocolonialism, where these agents of neocolonialism came to rise, right? So with the Congo itself, though, with Lumumba off the scene, and it dashed the aspirations of the Congolese people. It dashed not only the Congolese people, but the Pan-Africanists. Nkrumah was heartbroken, right, at the assassination of Lumumba. People were outraged throughout the world. There were demonstrations around the world when they found out that Lumumba was assassinated. In the United States itself, you had figures like Paul Robeson, Maya Angelou, Amiri Baraka, Max Roach, Abby Lincoln, these major cultural icons in the United States that were part of the what would become the Black Arts Movement, a part of the resistance in the United States, storming the UN building, right, in protest of the assassination of Lumumba. We have a graphic novel coming out called Lumumba the Freedom Fighter, for folks who will be coming out this year, this coming commemoration. Each January 17th, we commemorate Lumumba, and January 17th, 2024, we'll be commemorating Lumumba. We have a website called Lumumba Day, and we encourage people to visit it, lumumbaday.org, where they can join us in commemorating Lumumba. And commemorating Lumumba is a form of resistance. It's a way to say to the colonialists, the imperialists, that you may have killed a man, but you didn't kill his ideas. His ideas live with us today. His ideas live with the Congolese youth to this very day. And our uplifting Lumumba and his ideas is it's not a practice of hagiography or hero worship, but it's a form of resistance. It's a form of continuity of our tradition to saying that we still have that Pan-African vision in mind. We do know that Congo is central to the future of a free and liberated Africa. Congo is central to the Pan-African struggle. Congo is central to the Pan-African project. So I encourage you to visit lumumbaday.org. So here it is, Dr. Tata. This space that is central to the freedom and the liberation of the African continent is now occupied by an agent of neocolonialism in Joseph Desiré Mobutu. What that means is that the Pan-African project cannot be fully realized, right? It means that it's a delay of a free and liberated Africa. In fact, we see figures like Che Guevara seeing Congo as being on the front lines of the fight against colonialism, right? He said, Che Guevara, who went to Congo clandestinely, secretly, in 1965, said that Congo's problem is a worldwide problem, right? So the challenge of the Congo wasn't just a question of the Congolese, the Pan-Africanists, Africans, the African world, but it's a worldwide problem. And to see the importance and the significance and the implications of the assassination of Lumumba. When Che was there, he was there on a failed mission, Guevara, and he encountered some of the other leaders who were Lumumbis, and he observed that with leaders like these, Congo will be colonized for another 100 years. So the ridding of Lumumba set back, right, our freedom and liberation as Congolese and as Africans. And it's really important to understand that it wasn't just the assassination of a man, but it really was the assassination of the aspirations of a continent and a people. So when Friends of the Congo sees that, and Lumumba, in one of his letters, the last letter to his wife, Pauline, he really literally wrote it from the grave. that really inspired Friends of the Congo, our organization, the founding and the spirit of it. Lumumba said in that letter, he said, he was speaking to Congolese in this passage. He said, "We're not alone. Africa, free and liberated people from every corner of the world will always be found at the side of the Congolese." Right? So that's the message that Lumumba sent from his grave, that free and liberated people from every corner of the world will be found at the side of the Congolese. And that embodies the spirit of Friends of the Congo. That's a spirit in which we organize to be at the side of the Congolese, Pan-African solidarity, not solely because Lumumba called from the grave, but we're clear about the history that was laid down by the independence leaders and how they staked out the centrality of the Congo to the liberation of the African continent. And we're drawing upon that history. You know, Malcolm X, who was an ardent supporter of Lumumba, and almost always spoke about Lumumba when he had his debate in Oxford in the early 1960s. You know, he spoke about the Congo for most of the debate. And Malcolm said that of all our studies, history is best qualified to reward our research, right? That was Malcolm was saying that. That was Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam that was saying that. And that's what we encourage among modern day today Pan-Africanists, to be steeped in that history so that it can inform our actions and guide us as to how we're going to get to that, in Dr. King's word, to that promised land, right? So when I stated earlier, Dr. Tata, in reference to your opening statement about the blueprint and what's needed, it's been laid out there by the Tourés, by the Nkrumahs, by the Lumumbas. So although it was interrupted, it wasn't totally snuffed out. So when we looked at this period, this post-Lumumba period, this 3-decade period where the United States maintained the Mobutu dictatorship, by the time we get to the mid-1990s, or really the early 1990s, we see the winds of change coming on the African continent as a result of the end of the Cold War, right? Where countries like Benin initiated sovereign national conferences where people were gathering to discuss the future of their countries. Now that there was an opening, we went from a bipolar world, a Cold War world, right? USSR, Soviet Union, and the United States, where incidentally Nkrumah and Lumumba and others established their non-alignment movement, where they claim neither to be aligned with the East or the West, even though the United States had dubbed Lumumba a communist. He was anything but a communist, and we can delve a little bit more into that. But in any case, at the end of the Cold War, we see that this opening taking place on the African continent. And Benin was one of on the forefront of establishing these sovereign conferences. The Congo established a sovereign conference as well in 1992. And a massive democratic bottom-up movement that harkened back to the Lumumba era when his Mouvement National Congolais, the Congolese national movement, was rallying the people. So you had this pro-democracy, organic, authentic, democratic movement unfolding in the Congo, challenging Mobutu. However, the United States and Europe and others didn't support this movement. What ultimately happened? The U.S. knew Mobutu was getting old and had to be gotten rid of. So instead of supporting the pro-democracy forces. Instead of this paragon of democracy, the United States supporting the pro-democracy forces, what it decided to do, Dr. Tata, was to back an invasion of the Congo by two U.S. allies, Rwanda, led by Paul Kagame, and Uganda, led by Yoweri Museveni. And Angola had joined them in their first invasion in 1996. And Angola joined them not because Angola was like Rwanda and Uganda, who were really agents of the US, but because Angola had its own national interests, right? They joined the effort to overthrow Mobutu because they wanted to cut the umbilical cord between Mobutu in the Congo and Jonas Savimbi of UNITA in Angola, which was arch foe of Dos Santos and MPLA, right? Because Mobutu was an agent of the CIA, a longtime agent, and he would funnel resources, money, weapons, you name it. Savimbi was dependent on Mobutu as an outlet to continue his resistance against MPLA and Dos Santos in Angola. So Angola joined the initial invasion of the Congo to decapitate, to overthrow Mobutu in 1996. And they were successful. And they installed a protege of Lumumba, Laurent Desire Kabila, ultimately in 1997, in May of 1997, where he was declared the president of the Congo, renamed the country, Mobutu named the country Zaire. So Kabila renamed the country the Democratic Republic of the Congo in 1997. Now, Kabila didn't have an army of his own. He was installed as a leader of the country by Rwanda and Uganda. And not only did they install Kabila, but Rwanda also installed its leaders, its figures, Rwandans at the head of different Congolese institutions. Most notably, the Congolese military was headed up by a Rwandan. His name is James Kabarebe. He currently serves as a foreign minister for Rwanda. But at one point, he was the chief of the military in the Congo. And Kabila, Laurent Desire Kabila, being a nationalist, he was a Pan-Africanist himself, but they didn't sit well with him. So he felt that the Rwandans were controlling too much, that there wasn't a Pan-African solidarity to get rid of Mobutu, but it was an effort to get control of the Congo or have undue influence in the Congo. So he told the Rwandans that they had to leave. And he did this in 1998, just a little over a year since he'd been in power. And that didn't sit too well with the Rwandans, that he was telling them to get out of Dodge. So what the Rwandans and the Ugandans did, they organized again in 1998 to unleash a war against the Congo, this time to remove Kabila. Within that year span, Kabila had wisely become a part of the Southern African Development Community, right? SADC. And being a member of SADC, he reached out to the SADC community to say, listen, we're under assault by our neighbors, Rwanda and Uganda. They're backed by the United States, armed by the United States, and getting intelligence from the United States, equipment from the United States. We need your support. So at the time, Zimbabwe, under Mugabe, headed up the military wing of SADC, and he consulted, of course, with members of SADC, and most notably Angola and Namibia, and they agreed to back Kabila and confront Rwanda and Uganda in the Congo. And this 1998, that war that kicked off in August of 1998, is what many people refer to as Africa's First World War, where you had some 11 countries involved, where you had SADC coming to the side of Kabila. And it is here that the deadliest conflict in the world since World War II was triggered. It's here that we saw the loss of an estimated 6 million Congolese. Not directly because of the conflict, but indirectly. The deaths occurred because of conflict, the conflict itself, and conflict-related causes, right?
Mhm.
So ultimately, Rwanda's and Uganda's effort to overthrow Laurent Desire Kabila failed, right? He was stopped by the Angolans, stopped by the Zimbabweans, stopped by SADC. And a peace agreement was established in 2002, where the country, the Congo, the east of it, was occupied by Rwanda, occupied by Uganda. In fact, in 2000, the Rwandan and Ugandan military fought each other on Congolese soil for control of Congo's minerals, right? So it was really a war of aggression and a war of plunder. The United Nations published 4 studies from 2001 to 2002 that documented the illicit exploitation of Congo's minerals. They listed some 85 companies from all over the world that were involved. But they cited the president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, and president of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, as the mafia dons, the godfathers of the illicit exploitation of Congo's minerals, right? So these 2 countries occupied parts of eastern Congo, and they also support a coterie of militia groups, right, that were fighting as proxies, that they were arming, that they were training, that they were providing intelligence to. So Rwanda had its satellite of militia groups. Congo or Uganda had its satellite of militia groups. And even though a peace agreement was arrived at in 2002, the militia groups are still functioning in the Congo. In fact, the militia groups, the genealogy of those militia groups, they changed names over the years. 25 years later, we have one of the main ones called the M23, was still destabilizing the Congo, still being backed by Rwanda, still being backed by Paul Kagame. So that's why we've had a major reason why we've had a quarter century of instability in the east of the Congo. Because even though the war ended, the destabilizing on the part of Rwanda and Uganda so that they can get access to Congo's riches has continued for a quarter century. That's why today you can see Rwanda being a leading producer of coltan. Rwanda doesn't have coltan, certainly not in the abundance that Congo has. Gold spiking. The United Nations in their studies, they provided the charts. There's a spike in, once Rwanda and Uganda got into the Congo, you saw exponential increase in exports of those countries of gold, of coltan, of tin, of timber, right? So there's a direct correlation between the occupation of the Congo and the increase in exports of these raw materials that are found in spades in the Congo, right? So the data, the evidence is quite compelling. In any case, Laurent Desire Kabila, who led this pushback against Rwanda and Uganda and its occupation and attempt of regime change in the Congo, he was ultimately assassinated. And he was assassinated on January 16, 2001. Remember, Lumumba was assassinated on January 17. Kabila was a protege of Lumumba. So usually when these assassinations occur, somebody's trying to send a signal, right? You can look at the date. Some of these, sometimes you look at the date and you get an idea. right? They're like, you're Lumumbist, we're going to give you the same fate of Lumumba. Just like if we were to look at Dr. King, right? Dr. King gave its Breaking the Silence speech on August 4th, 1967 in Riverside Church, right? A year to the day later, August 4th, 1968, Dr. King was assassinated, right? And it was there that Breaking the Silence, he was talking about U.S. foreign policy and, of course, the U.S. War against Vietnam, where he famously stated that my nation is the greatest purveyor of violence in the world and suffers from those triple threat, right, of materialism, of militarism, and of racism. So when you see these assassinations, the powerful folks, they try to send a signal. In any case, Laurent Desire Kabila was assassinated in 2001, and he was taken, and his son, Joseph Kabila, took over power. Now, when Joseph Kabila took over power, you have to remember these themes in the Congo, current themes, like no leader being ascending to power in the Congo since Lumumba without the say of the United States, right? When Joseph Kabila took power in 2001, he was immediately invited to the Elysee, to in France, the White House in Washington. So the assassination of the assassination of Laurent Desire Kabila and the ascendancy of Joseph Kabila got the stamp of approval from the West, right? And at the same time, while all this is unfolding, where we see these invasions, we see the support of proxy militias, we see assassinations, these leaders that were engaged, primarily Kagame and Museveni, they were getting the stamp of approval from the United States. And what do I mean by that? In 1998, Bill Clinton, the president then, they traveled to Africa. And coming out of that, we have what we call the Entebbe Agreement, named after Entebbe in Uganda. And the listeners, viewers can look it up. Just do a Google search on the Entebbe Agreement. And at the time, you had Bill Clinton was the president of the United States. Madeleine Albright was the Secretary of State. And Susan Rice was the Assistant Secretary of State for Africa in the Clinton administration. And what the Clinton administration did, they had a blueprint for Africa, right? Each administration in the U.S., they have their policy, their blueprint for Africa. Trump did, Biden does now. So they came up with the notion of this new breed of African leaders, right? What they call Renaissance leaders of Africa. And chief among them were Meles Zenawi of Ethiopia, Yoweri Museveni of Uganda, and Paul Kagame of Rwanda. And they were seen as the new leaders. They would get the full backing of the United States. Now, interestingly enough, they came to power. They shared things in common, like the blood of millions of Africans on their hand. They're authoritarian figures. Came to power through the barrel of a gun. So these were the people that really killers of their fellow Africans that the United States was holding up as the model leaders of Africa, those that ought to be emulated, those that represent the future of Africa. Even though they've killed literally millions of Africans, are responsible for the killing of millions of Africans. Rwanda and Uganda alone, they invaded the Congo 2 times, right? So these invaders, the United Nations said they were plunderers, invaders, plunderers, killers. According to the United States, were Renaissance leaders, new breed of African leaders, right? And this has been part of the problem of the instability in the Great Lakes region of Africa. that this instability that exists there to this day would not have existed without the United States playing a negative and destructive role by facilitating three key phenomena, right? One is that they've co-signed and endorsed impunity in the region. They've co-signed and endorsed lack of accountability in the region. They've co-signed and endorsed lack of justice in the region. And these three phenomena has contributed to the persistent and endemic instability and conflict that we see in the Great Lakes region of Africa, and particularly in Eastern Congo. And why do I say that the United States has done that? The United States have certainly provided arms and training, and military equipment and financing. But as I shared with you, they put their stamp of imprimatur on these leaders. So when the US said these are Renaissance leaders, these are a new breed of leaders, the red carpet is rolled out in the United States. They can come to the United States as they see fit, visit universities, establish business relations. It's just an open door. But in addition to that, what the United States does now, in any effort to achieve justice, to institute some level of accountability, to try to end impunity, the US runs interference and provides diplomatic and political cover for these leaders who, for all intents and purposes, are war criminals because they've committed war crimes and crimes against humanity. And that's not me or Friends of the Congo saying that, right? The Congolese government took the leaders of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, and Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, to the International Court of Justice, right? And in 2005, the International Court of Justice ruled that Uganda is indebted to the Congo to the tune of $10 billion in old Congo's reparations because of the war crimes, crimes against humanity, and the plunder of Congo's resources. So that's the International Court of Justice saying that, right? I already shared with you that the United Nations documented in studies early in 2000, 2001 that these guys were the godfathers of the plunder of the Congo. Now, the same fate would have befallen Paul Kagame of Rwanda, but Rwanda wasn't party to the International Court of Justice. So the case that Congo brought against them couldn't be heard. You have to be party to the International Court of Justice. The same token, like you can't bring a case to the International Criminal Court, the ICC, against the United States. You can't do that. United States is not party to the ICC, right? So by the same token, the Rwandan government is not party. Now, there's some other efforts. There's a principle called, some other international efforts have been attempted. There's a principle called universal jurisdiction. Mm-hmm. And that is to say that a state can bring a charge against you, another state, and actors, right, for crimes that were committed against your citizen, right? It's the same principle that was used by the Spanish courts to try Pinochet of Chile. Mm. So under the universal jurisdiction, the Spanish courts charged some 40 Rwandan officials or so for crimes that they've committed against Rwandans, Congolese, and Spanish citizens, right? And they couldn't do that to Kagame because as a head of state, you cannot be charged under the principle of universal jurisdiction, not while you're in power. Once you get out of power, that's a different story. So there has been these attempts to as I said, to end the impunity, these three evils that have wreaked havoc and ravaged the Congolese people in the Great Lakes region. There have been attempts to end the impunity, attempts to inject some level of accountability, attempts to deliver justice. And in 2010, the United Nations published a report entitled the UN Mapping Exercise Report, where it studied the Congo from 1993 to 2003, documented some 600 or so cases of atrocities that were committed in the Congo, built a database of the perpetrators. So they know who committed the atrocities, who gave the orders, who orchestrated the massacres. And the United Nations has this database. And in that study, the report, which the Rwandan government fought tooth and nail to block from coming out, and according to French ambassador to the United States at this time, Susan Rice that I mentioned to you before, who was Assistant Secretary of State under Clinton, 2010, we're now under the Obama administration, she was ambassador to the United Nations. And there she tried to run interference on behalf of the Rwandan and Ugandan governments in trying to, primarily Rwanda, and block the report. The report was leaked and it was ultimately published. But before that, the Rwandan president, Paul Kagame, summoned the Secretary General of the United Nations, at the time it was Ban Ki-moon, to come to Kigali to explain why this report is seeing the day of light, or the light of day, right? So in that report, it said, notably, that the crimes that were committed by the Rwandan Patriotic Front, the Rwandan army, if those crimes were to be brought in front of a competent court, those crimes can be they could be brought up on charges of genocide, right? So the court, if the court could decide that the crimes that were committed could actually be genocide. So to this day, that document, the UN Mapping Exercise Report, which also called for reparations for the Congolese people, also called for the establishment of an international tribunal to try the cases, has been shut down, right? Little to no action. No action, really. So it's this cover-up, it's this interference that has enabled, right, the violence and the low intensity conflict to continue in the Great Lakes region of Africa, to the detriment of the Congolese people. And really, these crop of leaders that the United States has put its stamp on, its imprimatur on, right? What you'll notice about them, they're fundamentally different from the Nkrumahs, the Tourés, the Keitas, right? Because the Nkrumahs, the Tourés, and the Keitas, they saw Congo as central to the Pan-African project. Leopoldville at the time, today Kinshasa, as being the capital of the United States of Africa. But these leaders today, right, the Kagames and the Musevenis, they are predatory. Museveni infamously said, Congo is a banana plantation. You go and get what you want, right? They're leeching. They are siphoning. They are sucking the blood, literally and figuratively, out of the Congo. So as long as they continue to do that and keep Congo weak, unstable, and dependent and impoverished, they're playing the role as middlemen, because they're not really deciders. They're really functioning as agents of neocolonialism on behalf of the imperial powers, on behalf of Western powers. As long as these leaders are in place, I know Rwanda is put up as a model, but you really have to, pull back the curtain to see what's really happening. As long as they're in place, Africa cannot move forward, because Africa cannot move forward if Congo cannot move forward. And Congo cannot move forward as long as it's under the thumb of these leaders who are backed up by the West, right? So they're not Pan-African leaders. They're not. Contrary to what many people may put out there, we know what the model of Pan-Africanism is. A litmus test for Pan-Africanism, as the fathers of Pan-Africanism, the mothers of Pan-Africanism laid out for us. How did they respond to the Congo? How did the Pan-African leaders in the independence period respond to the Congo? That's a hallmark of Pan-Africanism, dude. The manner in which you respond to the heart of the African continent is indication of whether you're true Pan-Africanist or not. And the Kagames and the Musevenis are not. I'm sorry. I couldn't imagine a Kwame Nkrumah, for example, or a Sekou Touré fighting to become a part of the Commonwealth, pursuing the presidency of the Francophonie, which is what Rwanda has done. Now, that, to me, is contradictory with Pan-Africanism. How are you going to be a Pan-Africanist and you're going to be the presidency of the Francophonie? Louise Mushikiwabo, the former foreign minister of Rwanda, is now the Secretary General of the Francophonie. Now, the Pan-Africanists that I know are trying to kick France out of Africa. They're not trying to get up into France and the French institutions, right? Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, right? The masses of West Africa, they're saying, Abba, France, Afrique. Abba, France. Abba, Macron. They're not saying, can I become the Secretary General of the Francophonie? So we have to look at this in a lucid fashion and be clear-eyed. Do not be bamboozled, led astray, deceived by the propaganda. The highest octane propaganda machine on the African continent today is found in Kigali and is backed up by the United States. So we know what Pan-Africanism looks like. We know what Pan-African solidarity is. Consult Nkrumah, consult Touré, consult Keita, consult Félix Moumet, consult all those figures who rallied behind the Congo, not those who are pilfering the Congo today on behalf of Western interests. So these Pan-Africanism that we are pursuing, at the center and the heart of it is the Congo. And why? Why did Nkrumah write The Challenge of the Congo? Why did Sheikh Anta Diop in his Federated States of Africa singled out the Congo and its centrality? Congo is the heart of the African continent. It's the size of Western Europe, straddling the equator, right? One of the largest countries in the world with an estimated 100 million people, the second largest in terms of area on the African continent, fourth largest in terms of population, arguably the richest country on the planet in terms of natural resources. Some economists say it's a $24 trillion worth, estimated $24 trillion worth of natural resources in the Congo. That's equivalent to the gross domestic product of the United States, right? I don't know if the estimate is correct or not. I have questions about the methodology. I've traced it and I question it, right? But that's not the point. The point is that it's so wealthy, Dr. Tata, that you can actually make a claim of that nature about it, right? And that's not a new claim. European geologists at the dawn of the 20th century, what they said about the Congo, they said it was a geological scandal because so much wealth was packed into one area of the planet, right? So with this wealth, an estimated $24 trillion, we're just talking about the mineral wealth now, right? When we come to energy, I'm not necessarily an endorser of developing dams, but it is widely known that Congo has the hydro capacity to provide electricity for the entire African continent, have some left over to export to Southern Europe and Western Asia, right? And that's according to the World Energy, the International Energy Council, that has that potential. That's in terms of energy security. We talk about energy security. We talk about mineral wealth. According to the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, Congo has the agricultural capacity to feed 2 billion people, right? That's almost twice the population of the 1.3 billion people that we find on the African continent. So, Dr. Tata, imagine if we're talking about food security and feeding everybody in Africa, you say stabilize the Congo, develop its agricultural capacity, and you'll solve the food security problem on the African continent. This is what Kagame and Museveni in particular are retarding. This is why Nkrumah and Diop and Toure say that we want that Congo should be the capital of the United States of Africa. And then the most valuable resource of all, right? The human resource. The African continent is a continent of teenagers. The median age in the Congo is 17. Imagine Congo controlling and determining its own affairs and having the wherewithal to provide the education, the health necessary for this young, steaming population. What kind of impact that can have on the African continent? We're talking about a country, as I said, it's in the heart of the African continent. It's bordered by 9 other African countries. No other country on the African continent has that many countries bordering it. So it can have an immediate impact on the region and on the continent as a whole. In addition to that, we're talking about Africa. But let's talk about the planet as a whole and the Congo. Congo is a part of the second largest rainforest in the world. Vital in the fight against climate change. It's colloquially referred to as the second lung of the world, behind the Amazon. However, that second largest rainforest in the world sequesters more carbon, Dr. Tata, than all of the tropical rainforests combined, right? In addition to that, it's home to what is the largest tropical peatlands in the world. Congo has a tropical peatlands the size of England. And those peatlands trap carbon, the equivalent of which is about the same as 20 years, or what would be 20 years of pollution from carbon, from combustion engine in the United States, from the combustion engine in the United States. So Congo has 20 years, the equivalent of 20 years of that pollution trapped in its peatlands. So it's critical, not only to Africa, to the planet, as it relates to combating the climate crisis, preserving the Congo Basin, which is made up of countries of Gabon, Central African Republic, the Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, Congo Brazzaville, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And the Democratic Republic of Congo occupies 60%, 62% or so of the Congo Basin, right? So this is a vital treasure for the planet as a whole in terms of combating the climate crisis. At the same time, as we're talking about the preservation of the planet, the transition from the combustion engine to the electric engine, when we're talking about the clean energy transition, the green energy transition, there is no clean energy transition without the Congo. Why do I say that? Congo is home to, or Congo produces 70% of the world's cobalt, an indispensable mineral to the clean energy transition. It's vital for rechargeable batteries in our laptops, our cell phones, electric cars, power packs, those that run turbines and solar panels, the works, right? And if you add up all of the countries in the world that produce cobalt in the entire planet, they do not produce as much cobalt as Congo does alone. Some people have dubbed Congo the Saudi Arabia of cobalt, right? So these two critical elements as it relates to the preservation of the planet. On the one hand, combating the climate crisis. On the other hand, facilitating the green energy transition. Congo is front and center, key, indispensable, right, to that whole process. So this is the importance of Congo, not only to the Pan-African project, but to us as human beings. And our existence on this planet is found right in the heart of the continent. That continent, that heart that Joseph Conrad in his famous novella called The Heart of Darkness. But as Indigenous leaders in the Congo today, we're working on a film with a Congolese filmmaker, Petna Ndaliko, called Basanja. Basandja. People can go to Basanja, basandja.org. And Basanja is a Topoke principle found among the Topoke people in around the Sangi district in the heart of the rainforest. And in the Basanja is a code of ethic for human beings living in balance and harmony with all living entities. Now, when we talk about the preservation of the rainforest and its biodiversity, there's no one more qualified to preserve the rainforest and its biodiversity than the indigenous people living in the rainforest, who see it as a part of their culture,
Yes.
a part of their heritage, and their ancestry, right? So when we talk about the heart of darkness, we can't be talking about the Congo. We have to be talking about the light coming out of the Congo by these indigenous leaders that has this deep indigenous and traditional knowledge and wisdom that is vital for the survival of the planet, right? So this is, it's not only a question of natural resources and geography and land, but it's a question of culture, a question of intellect, a question of knowledge, a question of tradition that Congo and other parts of Africa have to offer to the world. So we're talking about the light coming out of the heart of the African continent that is key for saving the planet. So this, just to, I know we're running short on time to wrap it up. This is what the leaders, the local communities are fighting for in the Congo, not just for the Congo, but for Africa and for the planet as a whole. And they are reaching out. They are appealing to Africans, to Pan-Africanists, to people of goodwill, as Lumumba did, to come by their side, right, to join them as they fight for freedom, they fight for peace, they fight for liberation, they fight for human dignity in the heart of the African continent. And that's the appeal that's being made by the forest communities, the communities in the mining areas in the Katanga province, the communities in the west of the Congo, throughout the country. So it's incumbent upon us as Africans, as human beings, to rally behind the Congo, not because of the tragedy of the Congo, solely because of the tragedy, which is a scar in the conscience of humanity, considering the lack of attention that's been paid to millions of lives being lost in the heart of the motherland, but also because of the potential that it offers, because of the human capital that's found in the heart of the African continent. So it is that narrative, Dr. Tata, that story that must be told about the Congo. It's not just another country that was designed and lines were drawn around by European powers. It's the heart of the African continent that beckons all of us, those of us of conscience, to come to the side of the custodians of that prized piece of land in the heart of the motherland. So that's the message that Friends of Congo would like to convey to you today, to your viewers. That's the message that we carry around the world, and in being in solidarity with Congolese. Congolese interests are not fundamentally different from the interests of every single African on the planet, not fundamentally different from every human being on the planet, especially considering its centrality and its relevance for preserving the planet as we know it today. So I'd like to leave you with that message as we bring this to a close.
On the behalf of Pan-African Daily TV community here, we want to actually thank you. This is the first ever lecture that we had. Just like my brother said, I didn't know or have knowledge about Congo. It's so deep. We're really happy because this is a recording. It's a documentary that we've done. It's not just only to educate us here, but it's really a documentation that we're using as curriculums to teach also. So regardless, today is a Wednesday evening and people working, and at this time, particularly out there, but you're not going to believe. And when we do the production, we chop them into pieces. The real message that we want to send out is going to be found on our TikTok, because people don't have really that time now and the time to study. But for us who actually are deep into African history by ourselves, our story, it's a wonderful opportunity to have you. You know, and those of you that are joining, our brother Maurice is not a Congolese. He's a Jamaican born. I don't know how we would achieve the one Africa, the United African State, without us recognizing the contribution of the diaspora, not because of enslavement. Because when we talk about a diaspora, most of us are always talking about, yeah, there are enslaved descendants and stuff like that. But we are going to also begin the conversation of what this diaspora, because we know about the contribution of the diaspora building America, or the countries that, you know, they were enslaved into. Yeah, they built the plantation, they built the railways, they built this and this and this. But the one thing that we are not addressing, that's why you see Africans on the continent, or even those that should gain consciousness, are always looking at the diaspora as people who have to come to the continent because of the injustices that they are facing in the Americas. Nobody is actually talking about the conversation, how the diaspora, Jamaicans, African Americans, produce these Pan-Africans. Yes, we talk about Kwame Nkrumah, His Excellency, but he learned it, like we're hearing. He was a student of Booker T. Washington. He was a student of Marcus Garvey. He was a student of Patmos. He was a student. These were all Haitians, Jamaicans, African Americans. But nobody is talking about that. The continent is always busy, particularly the new Pan-Africanism or the new contact is, no, you are American brothers and sisters, come to the continent, it's your root, it's your this. They don't even know that even without being on the continent, anything that happens to what we call the eye open eye, before even President Kwame Nkrumah could take the mission to inspire Patrice Lumumba, Sekou Touré, Philippe Wanje, all this, what we call the fathers. We've never had a lecture like this where it went into the deepest part. But you, coming from the background of Jamaica, born, is giving the story of the continent. I don't think I know any professor. Anyway, we haven't touched base on the continent. Even those that are speaking loud about Pan-Africanism would give this historical background. And so, honestly speaking, we cannot speak about the unity of Africans without, first of all, reconciling, like you said, our thoughts and really giving. I think at some point, like you said, it's not really only about resources. It's not just about people that are being killed. This 10 million plus the 6 million, let's just say the 20, 30, 50 million, those we don't even know. People die everywhere these days. But what we gather, that I'm trying to paraphrase to, add more what I learned this evening, In another way, it's like the world is going to be judged by what they do to Congo. And so this Congo, as we're speaking about, is not inhabitants of the Congolese people. I mean, the Congolese people are busy playing Lingala, all the Kofi Olomides and singing. I've never heard anybody on any concert with these mega superstars, Fali Ipupa, just pay a minute of silence to their heroes. I've never. We've never. They go around, they dance Kwaito, they host huge millions of concerts that people pay that they would have used just one statement. It could send a lot of information to people. These are the sons of Congo that are not doing that. But they are brothers from Jamaica, like Professor Carney, like the sons and friends of the Congo that are not even attached to Congolese. They're not, when we say, because that's another thing, that's like you started in the beginning by saying the lies of the boundaries. The fact that we, just imagine the idea of thinking you, my brother, is actually, a Jamaican. I'm telling you, what you're telling us about Congo today, not talk, not thinking, not opinioning, facts. That is everything that can be proven, what we call a scientific research. Facts, data, references, where you can search everything. I mean, I'll just recommend each and everyone to go through this conversation and share it as much as you can. Chop the pieces that are really, most of you now are on TikTok or on everywhere. That is the purpose. And I heard my brother said, let's all be friends of Congo.
Yes.
Even when I hear this, to me, it still comes like it's a lobby. I don't know whether it is right to say, let's be friends of Congo. Of course, brother, you are typically right to say that. But for me, what I've just been thinking and like, oh, we would go nowhere. We would go nowhere until we become Congolese.
Yes.
And not Congolese in people that are born in Congo. Congolese, I mean, as a matter of fact, I think maybe we should re-paraphrase the meaning of Panafricanism. Maybe because we keep using Panafricanism. Panafricanism has been abused, has been infiltrated with different kind of concepts and political rivalry. Like even though it was the spirit of Ubuntu to say, if Congo is not free, none of us is free. If Africans everywhere are not free, if this life doesn't matter, no other life matters. Whether you're president of a country or you're sneakingly, selling out your people or thinking you're smart and convincing people that no, my own country now is the cleanest because I did this, not knowing that you use the blood of your own people to clean those, what we see. At the end of the day, it's not really about people. It's not really about individuals. It is really about the spirit. The spirit that is behind every single decision and the truth that we keep covering all the time. Honestly speaking, I'm not interested who did this what. Because the people have already gotten what they would deserve. And that's why you see, no matter how we turn around, we play and do what, at a certain point, somebody will have to pay in one way or the other. It is either you're paying by the watering of the graves of the truth till today, or you just disappear like the Mobutus that nobody even would hear even about your seat. I don't know anybody that is proudly going around and say, I'm a son, I'm a daughter of Mobutu. But definitely he has children. He has children. He has offsprings. I'm telling you, I think when they even look at their father's legacy and everything that he did, nobody will be proud of that. But today, hey, believe me, people are naming their children Patrice Lumumba,
Oh yeah.
Thomas Sankara,
Yes. Yes.
or George Padmon, Garvey, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, Winnie Mandela, Harriet Tubman, everybody. Yeah, Asante, everybody is all the conscious African community.
That's
They're renaming
absolutely.
their children today. And now, who is going to rename? And that's the principle. That's the basic why I think. I mean, even when the Bible, I mean, the Euro-Christian Bible says, you shall be remembered by what you have done. And for me, that is eternity. You live
Mm.
in eternity. It means even the sins of your father by killing, maiming, and that is going to follow your whole generation. So you're not doing it just for you, but you've planted a legacy that will be remembered for good or for disappeared without remember. So people, I really come in the name of all our ancestors so very much for the lectures of today. This lecture is paramount. This lecture should be shared to all the propagandas of Pan-Africanism. When I say we, that is this message, this research. I don't know how much we can, me, when I'm happy, I say it. When you talked about the Haitian Pan-Africanism, that was even in the first conference, in the first Congress, Pan-African Congress, that happened on the continent. Did I get you right? On Friday, we're going to celebrate the 265th birthday of Emperor Dessalines, or the Dessalines, 265. We're joining Professor Baina, the Queen of Haiti, to celebrate. We celebrate it, but then again, we are continuing it. And during that celebration, as all of you already know, Professor Baina told us they did gift, like presents that were brought all over. Haitians were giving books, those that were giving clothes, those that were giving, they were just sharing. And now, because of the principles of his emperor, who believed in the African Ubuntu-ness of sharing. Now, Fondation Félicité, which is run by Professor Baina, is going to organize another second birthday to share everything that came in. It is very important for us Africans to understand the values of this kind of ceremonies and the impact, African spirituality impact that is left behind. So I really
Absolutely.
thank you for coming to share with us. But what we would keep is the good things that we would remember and the spirit of unity that our Pan-African leaders were talking
Yes.
about was not just only, like you said, Nkrumah, they chose a non-violent method as to the method of Algeria and the French liberation movement, right? Until today, that spirit would follow us. The one only thing that for me, I know our ancestors, like you said, the ancestor rose up from and told us until we would rally, until we all would become conscious of to understand that the fate of one is the fate of all. And just knowing that. I mean, the background of these lectures, I don't think is that to say that people in the Congo should rise up or people in the this and demonstrate for this and that. Just becoming friends of Congo to know the truth, documented, is enough. Very, very enough. So I want to thank you so very much, sir, for coming.
Yes. Thank
And
you.
this is not the end.
No.
Like, don't think it's because we are behind time. Your lecture on the topic Congo, what we have looked for 3 years, we have searched for 3 years. We didn't get somebody like you. And now Jamaica, we want to shout out to you. The diaspora, we shout out to you. that the truth, when the Africans of on the continent say, we need you in the diaspora, it's not just to come, we buy land, we settle because there are bills in America or in Jamaica. No, but I think the deeper meaning is we do understand as the community on this platform. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.
And together with you, I will reach out again after the show or in the next coming day to actually share my appreciation again and the way forward. Thank you
All
so very
right,
much.
fabulous. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Tata.
Thank you. Peace
Be
and
well.
blessings.
Peace and blessings.
Bye. Yeah,
Bye-bye.
good. So people, like I said, I'm just going to share. I already shared the link. Thank you, Cheryl. Cheryl said I bought my raffle already. I think Snovia also bought. Reparations is looking forward for the link to buy. I'm just sharing it here. Reparations, thank you. You contributed, for my ticket to Cameroon. Thank you very much. Yes, exactly. Good one. So I keep reminding, I've posted the link again, but just take a look at this. What Professor Baina and team from Fondation Félicité has put us, everything that wonderful. So these are all the plenty beautiful things that you're going to get when you buy your raffle. And this raffle, I clicked to the link. It's like when you already donate $27, you're already part of it. It means you've already purchased your raffle. So I don't know what you're waiting. After the show, I'm just going to buy mine. The whole of my team has bought, and we are just waiting for everyone. Right now, as I'm speaking, you can just click on that link. It's so simple to get. I mean, when Professor shared it in the women's group, in less than 1 minute, I just saw Cheryl said, "Oh, I just got mine." And I saw Synovia, I just got mine. Stevie, I just got mine. Like, it was just like a ripple effect. Like, it's so easy to just buy your raffle. Why would we talk about the unity of Africa when opportunities like this come our way and we don't partake? So we are only just also mimicking somehow, but the truth is we are not partaking. This is an advantage, an opportunity to share your solidarity for one Africa, recognizing the impact and the input of Emperors Desalegn and his wife Felicite as the first ever people. You heard Julius Malema say it, because all of them, they start reading the Haitian. So as a matter of fact, like our brother was saying, if Congo doesn't matter, Africa will not matter. In fact, if Haiti doesn't matter, Africans worldwide will not matter, because the first ever liberator that came out with the movement of Panafricanism and say, this, we must be free, is Emperor Desalegn. Go again on Fondation Félicité and learn and study about this great personality who fought with all his strength. And we had a little bit of story. He was given as a child of a bourgeois to go and given to his masters to go and take my child along the world, let him learn. If you remember the movie Coming to America, where the king of Zamunda gave Eddie Murphy and said, no, you and the bodyguard, and say, you take him, let him explore the world and this, and then come back and marry. You understand? So it's the same thing. But what happened when they went to Queens and met Lisa? It was like Eddie Murphy then just stayed. So it's the same thing with King Desalegn. What happened is he came, and then his bodyguard sold him into slavery, and he never returned back right home. And so, but he decided to stay and liberate the generation of the people who probably were already existing there. As a matter of fact, that is still also some things that, you know, right now our brains, I think, is still too little. We're still dealing with even understanding who we are. We're still dealing with understanding who our siblings are. We're still dealing with the consciousness of who we as a people are. So to climb again another step to start saying, you know, we were origins everywhere, it cannot be disputed. But right now, honestly, people, we don't want to, because at a certain point, I have the feeling like we're just like too much and then just explode. Nobody, too much knowledge, because it's accumulation, right? So we want to thank everybody. Please purchase your rifle. I know Cheryl, Queen Cheryl was saying, no, Dr. Tata doesn't want you to buy anything like this, to buy anything. No, to be honest with you, I want you to buy. All of us should buy. Be on Friday on Fondation Felicite. And take away. I think there would even be, you know, more rifles that will buy than that, but that's going to go into the organization of Professor Baena. Professor Baena, I swear on her. She's the replica of Harriet Tubman, has resisted for how many years until today. She speaks with a smile. I wish all of us would get that inspiration. Not even just talking about the historical Empress Felicite and his husband, but the then Baena that we see, the then ones that we can touch, right? The prophets of the past is a reminder of the reincarnation of the new ones that are sitting on it. I don't even know which one I am. I just think I'm a combination of all. I keep calling them, like Baba Kaba told us, call them the millions. Girl, boy, I don't even know what you've done with that information, but me, I'm just busy every day. Busy every day pouring, you know, and calling all the, awakening all the millions. So I think we are doing just that, because sometimes I know, and honestly, that's why sometimes I really have to split in between. I just leave us some days off, not really because we're busy doing other things, but sometimes we need to digest some information like this. Like now I'm already thinking, do I really need to host a show tomorrow? Because it's going to dilute this information, right? So sometimes we just leave it sink into us, like the prophetic message of Professor Carver. Whether you get his books or not, he already just tell you everything that was supposed to be said. But you want to get into the deeper knowledge, into the deeper soul. Like now I just pour my own libations. I call my million. But imagine if I will read it. Maybe it's just more than I can. I just need to sit and imagine, and then I'll be in Zimbabwe. Yeah, just sit. That's just sit and focus and meditate. Then I'll be in Haiti. Right? We can. It's been proven that the African power, our ancestors flew. That's where all the discovery came from. But just imagine if we are not in this stuff, we're not serious about it. I think. Anyway, I thank all of you. I just really thank all of you who said, all right, I think I have a question here on that. I don't know how to donate. Should I just buy a ticket? Sandra, go ahead, buy a ticket. Whether you're donating to Fondation Felicite or you're giving to Pan-African, then it's one thing. It's the same. Buy the ticket for the rifle. At least you're going to win something and you're going to keep it. And next time, we're still going to continue to donate and support ourselves. Please, we have to support Professor Baena Bello. I know it's difficult for people to support platforms that are run by Black queens. That's a fact. Also, because of the destruction in our mindset about who we are, we forget to understand that we just one, that the queen mothers are actually the pillars, the community builders, you know, the queens that bring the soft power. Even though they constantly been like, oh no, they are the weaker. Yes, we agree. We're not. It's not in a battlefield. We're not justifying anything. but we just say that. The fact that her voice is so subtle, so calm, so cool, like she's always cool, like everything is fine, doesn't mean that the projects and the people, the Haitians, whom she's doing everything to continue that work, are okay. So I really want to thank you. I'm just going to put again the link, for you to buy that raffle. And remember, it's on Friday. Yeah, on Friday. And I'm so happy that I'm going to be co-hosting, but I don't know the modalities, how it's going to function, but he's going to definitely reach out to me. And that's the more reason I have to come live tomorrow. And normally, like I said, we would have enjoyed these lectures about Congo, go back again and really understand the more reason its history and our story should be understood. We understood where we actually, the line of break. Whew, what else can I say to us? I'm done past that level. I don't know whether you're also like that. In the beginning, when I had lectures like this, I wouldn't sleep for a week. I'd just be traumatized and just like, how could it happen? Why did it happen? Why us? Why this and this and this and this? But right now, when you know who you are, these things don't really matter. You're just looking for solutions. You're not bothering about, yes, it happened. Yes, it happens everywhere. But you're confident. You're not touchable. Your spirit, your soul is not attacked and arrested because you know the millions and the reason why it did happen. So I want to thank all of you. I'll be leaving you right now because actually, yeah, we bypassed the conversation, and it was so sweet. I could not interrupt to tell you about the rifle. I thought once or twice to make a break, but it was not possible. It wasn't possible. We sat for 2 hours something, like only our brains and open our ears. I'm telling you, it's I congratulate us. And I saw the number that was watching and that kept quiet, no distraction, nothing. Everybody was just focused. I bless you. And as we take the solidarity of the Congo, our heart of the universe, just like Haiti and all our places where we are, we pray that our hearts should be open, that we discover the theory, the secret to really unite this beautiful earth. In a little way, like he said, it's not the dark heart of Congo, it's the light of Congo. So just imagine if any of us would just shine a little light in a positive way. In forgiveness, we must. We would not live with pain because that's the pain that will kill us. We would not live with it. No, we would move on. And we would not be tempted to be bad because bad happens to you. No, that's not going to happen. So I really want to thank you. Yes. Should Black History Month be celebrated and be a national day by all African nations? As a matter of fact, we never had that in Germany. Of course, no. I'm sorry. I don't want to make some mistakes. Some part of Germany actually, but like in the US or Canada, really Black History Month was never on the table. And I'm really thinking come February, we're going to have a conversation already, physical one in my community and also online. We're going to do that. So yes, thank you, Brother Fukan. You're very, very right. We have to remember all the heroes, sheroes, and all those who gave up or who were slaughtered, for us. So, we see us tomorrow. I think we're going to have a conversation with the professor from Cameroon. He signaled and he wants to show us some elements and symbols of ancient Africa that is still visible today, but is not really communicated as part of who we are. So he'll be coming live tomorrow. Professor Akumbo would be coming on those symbols. So when you see, because most of our symbols we don't know. That's what we talk about, even our artifacts. Most of us don't really have an idea. But most of them, we even abuse it the way we use it, like the cowries. What's the meaning of the cowries? He wanted to explain it here the other day. But from what we know, even the professors that I've been talking about, if you look at the shape of the cowries, it's exactly the shape of the womb of the mother. And so it's not just that they throw the cowries when they're doing libation or incantations. It's actually the womb. The womb is also the embryo, and the embryo is Congo. A lot to learn. So the cowries, but today we see people using the cowries and just like wear it on their foot or wear it on without knowing the power. Like I said, look at the shape again. It's actually the womb of a mother. So yes, he's going to come up with some symbols that could be very important for us. And when we are going around with these symbols, we know the power that is behind the use of it and how we can use it even to decorate ourselves. Now you see people putting cowries on their hair, on their braids, on their arm, and you begin to wonder, why was it only the queen mothers? And when I grew up in the village or everywhere, when you see a woman that has cowries, you just know it's a queen mother from the palace, from the royals, right? And so these are all these kind of symbolisms and our traditional symbols that we also have to pay attention, because they are protection. They protect us in every way. They give us the power that we need, right? Instead of us just buying any kind of jewels because we wear. But imagine when you even take it as a jewel, but you know the power and the influence that it has on you, it is even more. You know, most of our young girls, when they started seeing their period, they would wear it around their waist, you know, to even count. Just like he was saying, it was used for money. That's the colonial interpretation. When they came, they saw the importance of that womb, of that symbol. Then they begin to use it now like wealth, right? Is it different? I don't know. Is it different today? Okay. So, wow. All right. So good night to all of us. And we see us tomorrow. Please stay cool, stay relaxed, and enjoy, and just understand that they never going to be any moment like this in life. For the first time that we're connecting and getting to know ourselves, tapping into our power, tapping into our knowledge, just listening and enjoying, right? And it might hurt, but most often I think it's more healing to know the truth of who you are than to just be ignorant. So let this healing, this power of the knowledge of the past actually bless us and keep us cool and connect us forever. So we see tomorrow.
You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want: unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa.